So I've taken the top off this engine here, this air intake, to get to the injectors and things like this. I noticed there wasn't a gasket on here. Unusual. When I've done the 4 litre ones for the Discos, the Disco 2s, there was a gasket there. Now, one thing that was a really sort of an annoying thing, I want to take the coil pack off. That's not the coil's off. Not a big deal. Except some muppet who designed this has got the fuel pipe going over this bracket here. I don't know if you can see that. So now I've got to take the fuel rail off in order to take the coil pack off. What a daft idea that is. Right, let's get on with that. So we've got to take all these little multi plugs off here, and you get them off by simply just pushing the little spring clip, and they all come off. And don't worry about getting them in the wrong order. You know, when you put the harness back on, everything sort of drops back into place. Right, we'll do that then. Before I take off the intake and the heads, I want to take the wiring off. Well, why don't you do that, Mike? It's kind of simple. Oh, you even have to end up taking off the sensor, the crank sensor down here. Well, it isn't a big deal because I've got it to change anyway. But it's a god almighty job to get into. I mean, it's easy here, but when it's on the car, you've got these little bolts. Let's get one out. And you remember, when you're working on the car, it'll be all. Oops, there it goes on the floor. Oops. Yeah, when you're working on the car, it'll all be covered in dirt and grease and muck. Very hard to see, and of course, once you've got the manifold coming down here, it's very difficult to get into. So anyway, I'm going to change that. I've had to take the knock sensor wires off, both sides, and the starter wire. I'm going to take the starter off anyway. I'm going to take it down the shop, get it cleaned and checked. And yeah, so then we should be able to get the wiring out the way. But we'll come back to this in a minute. So I've got the sensor out. Good job I'm changing it too. Let's pull it out of its cover, because if you look on here, those wires are all exposed, look. They've got hot and they're brittle. That's going to short out on something eventually. Not good. So there's a sensor. Now let me grab the old one and the new one, and I'll show you what we have to swap out. This is the new replacement sensor, and this is the original. You notice that the adapters here are different, so you have to use this adapter onto that sensor and throw this one away. Then everything will be fine. Yeah, they've seen sort of better days. We just don't know, because you see, if these sensors actually go, you won't start your car at all. Now normally when you've got a sensor off on an engine, like a check engine light or something like that, a sensor's gone, it doesn't stop the car from working, but this does. Quick simple way to tell: crank your engine, if you don't see any pulses on your tachometer, this chap's gone. So this is why we're changing it now. An ounce of prevention, pound of cure, etc, etc. So we'll tidy up those wires when it comes time to fit it back on, and then we'll make sure that's okay, if you see what I mean. Now you can see the tip on here's getting kind of dirty, but we're not bothered about that. All we want is that piece here. With the intake off and the valley gasket out, you can see now, looking in this engine, it's a lot cleaner than I would have thought. I thought it was going to be all gungy like this inside, and it isn't. It's quite clean. Quite surprised. And I'm looking at the cam, and the lobes look quite good. They look nice, and they're not rounded at all, which is another good thing. One of the reasons why I'm doing all this is, look at this. The rubbers have got so dry and hard, look. They're all crunched up, so now is the time to do it. Yeah, the last thing I'm going to do for this, before I take the heads off, is going to take the power steering pump off, because otherwise it's going to be sort of getting in our way, and then we can just undo the bolts for the head. This is a 4 litre and it didn't have the extra bolts here. They did away with those, so we're going to just take the bolts off in a crisscross fashion, starting at the outside, working diagonally inside. The opposite way do you normally tighten them up. But then we can get to all this. Look at this gunging here, look at that. We can get all that lot out. Right, let's have a look at some heads. And there you go, the heads are off. No shiny pistons on this side. And, good job I had my boots on. No shiny pistons on this side, so that's a good block. Very pleased about that. Got a bit of cleaning up to do. The bores are perfect. Had a little bit of water in here at some time, but that's not a great deal of problems. Let's have a look at the heads. It's had a bit of moisture in at some time. I don't know where that's come from. But yeah, there's no big chunks out of the valves or anything like that, but I'm going to check the heads for straightness, take the valves out when we get the gasket set, replace the guide seals, check the spring lengths, and that's it. But the next step is cleaning these up, get them all cleaned up. Now, these gaskets here might have been replaced at some point, but I don't know. You see, it's actually got the Land Rover badge on down there, can you see? And these are, yeah, what are they now? The E-ring or something like that. There's German ones anyway. So I don't think these have been off before. Usually what happens is they go here. You know, when the water jacket, and I've explained this before, and I mentioned earlier that there's no water jackets around the pistons. You can see on the heads. So water comes in one side and comes out the other. It goes over the top of the head to keep it cool. So when people said they got a blown head gasket and it's using water, well, it either blows this way or this way, which is very rare, or generally speaking it wears here and leaks out the side. But if it is using a lot of water, usually it's a cracked liner or a cracked block or a slip liner. Not much we can do with that. Anyway, I'm quite pleased with that. Now we've got to get on with some cleaning.